I'm Patricia Hollins, and I'm an artist. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and I've lived there for a very long time. I moved here in the 70s, actually, but I was raised in Philadelphia, Philadelphia area, and so this is sort of my second home. I got my start in the Philadelphia area, in the suburbs. At the first town that I was in as a child was Orland, Pennsylvania, and so I like to think that that's kind of where I got my start. My mother was a painter, and she was always dragging me to art museums and sending me to art lessons, and I like to think about the first art classes that I took as being kind of, the germination of the whole thing. And that was at an art center, the Orland Art Center. And my parents were like founding members of this little art center, and it was they held classes in the basement of the bank. And so that was my first experience, learning to make pictures with paint and learning how to clean brushes. And my first job was at the University of Miami in Ohio, and then I ended up teaching at Metropolitan Community College, and I was there for over 20 years as a full-time instructor, teaching drawing and painting and design. And design is really, I think, what you probably see the influence of in this show. Because they're formal considerations of color and shape and line and composition and thinking about how things work together as a structure. Acrylic became the medium of choice because it was affordable and it was doable. I could clean up and work with it in my home. And I think that the other thing about acrylic that's kind of interesting is, if you look at my work, I'm not a painterly painter. It isn't that I haven't done paintings that have that quality to them, but there's more of a graphic quality. And I think that I've been thinking about this. The way I handle paint is building up layers, and I think it's really almost related more to color drawing. I did a lot of Prismacolor pencil drawing there for a while, and so like working with paint as a dry brush medium, really, and building up layers that way is something that is pretty evident in my work, I think, or at least it is to me. The way I settled is that they're really my most recent work, and they're from a couple different series, but they seem like they would go together. The colors would work together, and they would make sense together. And everything's fairly abstract, although I have a tendency to go in towards the figurative to some extent. So I think the little pieces, seem more like exercises in color and pattern and texture. And the larger pieces, I'll start out that way, thinking this is going to be a really abstract painting, and then like that one over there, one of the cloud paintings will turn into a gateway, and then I like that idea of architecture. So you'll see gateways, doorways. So this piece that I'm standing in front of is probably the most figurative of the pieces, and it started out completely abstract. You can kind of see those two curves there and some of the geometric shapes that are up in the top. But that was in a former life, because at some point I decided to start drawing these big flowers on top of it just to see what would happen. And that's when that yellow space turned into a window. And so now, again, another window, and the flowers